Hope Bohanec, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Very nice to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
When I was first asked to come and host on this show, you're the first person I thought of. I met you at the Dallas Veggie Fair, called the Texas Veggie Fair, and had a short conversation with you. Brought your book home, The Ultimate Betrayal, and really enjoyed it. It was very readable, very informative, and you made really great ethical arguments in your book.
Thank you.
So just to get started, please just tell me about the reasons why you decided to write this book.
Yeah, so I've been vegan myself for 25 years and been working on animal agriculture issues for all that time. And, and for many, many years, it's been kind of the same story. We've had what we have called factory farming for a long time and been telling people about the horrors of what the animals endure. And usually the conversations go about the same way, like where do you get your protein, things like that. And recently, though, maybe in the last 3 to 5 years, there seems to be a shift. And I'm having these conversations, and people will say things like, my eggs are free range, and my meat's organic. So there's this shift now in the perception of how animals are raised, that there's different methods, that there's labels, new labels that are making things better in the consumer's eyes. And so I thought that this was a really interesting thing to delve into, and I did extensive research into this issue to really dig up the truth behind these new labels, both ethically and environmentally. And, I live in Sonoma County, California. It's north of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, about an hour north of San Francisco. And it's really taken off so heavily here, so popular now, the slow food movement and the get to know your farmer and all this stuff is happening. And so I'm kind of embedded in it. I'm able to actually go to these farms and really see what's going on, these supposedly new alternative label farms. So that's what I wanted to do with the book, was really to delve in and expose the truth behind these labels, which I'm sure you can imagine is that there's actually inherent cruelty in raising animals and in animal agriculture that you just can't wish away with a humane label.
And that gets right to the title of the book, The Ultimate Betrayal. Please explain what you mean by betrayal here.
Well, the reason I call the book The Ultimate Betrayal, when we care for someone, as a farmer cares for an animal, and of course it can be anyone, and animals are someone, not something, but it could be human or non-human. When you care for someone, there's a relationship that builds, a trust that builds, a bond even between these two beings. Domestic animals are so absolutely reliant on us. They need us for everything, for their whole existence, for their sustenance, for their shelter, for everything. So, we have a responsibility when we are caring for these animals, and to turn around and just blatantly betray that trust by killing these young, healthy animals that have been in your care, for killing them for a profit, that completely unnecessarily. It's just a betrayal that is so egregious that I call it the ultimate betrayal. It's just really such a deep, deep betrayal of these animals' trust. And, we have this, like I was talking about here, in, the local, in any place that's having this local food movement. They're talking about, the one bad day thing. Right. It's just one bad day. They had a great life, but it's just one bad day. Well, when we're talking about a young, healthy animal that has their whole life ahead of them, that wants to feel the earth under their feet and feel the sun on their bodies once again for another day, it's not just one terrible day. It is a deep betrayal and taking away their entire life. And, we're kind of connecting these dots. I think the good part of this, the positive aspect of this whole thing is that, we're having a kind of a societal discomfort with the way animals are treated in animal agriculture, and that's a good thing. And that's what this whole thing is a reflection or reaction to that, trying to, make it better. But eventually, I think what people are going to realize is that the ultimate end of this thinking is you don't abuse an animal, you don't cause an animal to suffer, you don't kill an animal.
Exactly.
It's a logical progression, and we're getting there. As a society, we're getting there. We can't take it all in one bite, but we're getting there.
As you know, these lives that are cut short are unfortunately mostly pretty miserable lives. The chickens are born in, huge batches indoors. They never see the light of day, usually in most cases, and they live to be about 6 weeks old. Cows, sometimes the meat cows, as you might refer to them, they maybe are out on pasture the first 6 months of their lives or so, but then they're put in these horrific feed pens, and then they're fattened up in their last couple of weeks right in the slaughterhouse, and it's basically living in prison all their lives with sensory deprivation, crowding, discomfort, and illness even. They suffer from illnesses like abscesses and ulcers from being fed food that they're not fit to eat.
Something interesting about that, a lot of people think that, these labels, at least it's a little better for them. It's a little better. Well, in some cases, it can actually be worse. A good example is the organic dairy industry. We were talking about illnesses. Well, because they're still in these crowded conditions and the taxing on their bodies of being impregnated, and they still have illnesses. They often have mastitis, which is an infection of the udder that causes sores and pus. It's very painful for them to be milked. Well, in the organic industry, they cannot give them the same medications, the same antibiotics that, a vet normally would give them to keep them healthy enough to be able to continue to be milked. So unfortunately, these poor cows are so ill, and they are not taken out of production because, you see, if they gave them medications, they'd have to take them out of production, and then they wouldn't make money on that milk. So they just let them linger in pain with mastitis. I had a veterinarian that I interviewed for the book tell me that he saw that the cows that he saw that were suffering the most were often on organic dairy farms.
Oh, whichever way they try to present it, it's just all bad, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to me, the betrayal is, their focus on the betrayal of the animals. These are animals that have been domesticated for, over 1,000 years and much more than that even, and they're not really. They have some interesting characteristics, behaviors. They can have nice lives, but they have sort of been bred to be somewhat dependent on people.
Just like our cats and dogs and horses. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where you say the betrayal comes in. We've kind of roped them in,
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it is our responsibility now to care for them in a completely humane manner, and killing them for their flesh and their eggs is not humane.
Talk about raising animals in a kind manner, or first of all, obviously, killing them is the ultimate thing that we all want to prevent around here. But just for wild animals, I'm also a big supporter of, cutting back or stopping the dead animal industry, partly to protect wild animals, the wolves, the coyotes, the bison, the prairie dogs.
Sure.
Out west, the prairie dogs are just being wiped out to make room for cows, The dead animal industry is torturing the wildlife as much as they are the domesticated animals. If you know how to study and you work hard at trying to learn about the things that you're talking about, you can find out a good amount of information, but really, like talking about the environment or talking about health or food safety or animal cruelty is just now coming out in the public, Part of your book talks about animal cruelty laws. In animal cruelty laws, your book talks about how killing dogs can be a felony, but killing hundreds of cows every day can get you a paycheck.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because I was talking about the positive aspect of the whole alternative animal production. And, it's really, we are as a society becoming more concerned about the welfare of animals and definitely moving in that direction, which is great. But we seem to have this really odd exception when it comes to farmed animals, as far as like just our rational gradations of transgressions against one another. For instance, abuse is bad, but killing is worse. And so it's really interesting that we've kind of exempted farmed animals from this basic moral understanding. And it actually isn't limited just to humans. We have really comprehensive anti-cruelty laws for companion animals as well. Mm-hmm. So like what you were talking about, where if you abuse a dog, that's bad. You abuse and kill a dog, that's much worse. And you could actually get possible felony and jail time because you killed the animal. But then someone killed 100 cows a day and they're getting a paycheck. So yes. We've really made farmed animals exempt from this basic moral understanding and gradation of transgressions. And we're kind of, compensating. I think that we definitely have an unconscious awareness of this, and we're compensating for that by saying, well, at least the animals need to be treated well while they're alive.
Yes.
They need to be treated well while they're alive. And that's kind of where we are now, which, again, is a good thing. But, we've got to get to the point where we don't kill them at all. And thinking about humane slaughter, okay, can there be humane slaughter, humane killing? So let me ask a question. Would someone rather be killed or hit by a baseball bat?
Exactly.
A horrible decision, of course, but people would choose, a rational person would choose to be hit with a baseball bat, even if it was going to be debilitating, even if it was going to be very painful, because they would choose to live.
Exactly.
And all animals, non-human or human, would choose to live. They want to live the next day. They don't want to die. So now let me ask another question. Would it be acceptable for a farmer to hit a pig with a baseball bat? No, of course not.
Yeah.
And anyone, no matter what their diet, would agree. They'd say, oh, of course you can't hit a pig with a baseball bat. Well, then why is it okay to commit the much greater violation and kill the pig? It makes no sense. We've got to put all this together, connect the dots, and realize that we should not be killing these animals, no matter what kind of life they live.
I came up in my mind with this notion of the power of normal, and just what people see throughout their lives since the time they're born. They just get used to it because it's always been that way. And so they think it's normal and it must be okay.
Right,
right. Yes, and it's great that people like you, other writers, other personalities in the vegan movement are getting more and more successful at making people know that, no, it's not. It shouldn't be considered normal. It shouldn't be considered right.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, you were talking about how killing dogs is a felony. I recently saw a presentation about Texas laws regarding, animals. And Texas, if someone kills your dog, they have damaged your property and they owe you monetary compensation for that.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, yeah, all those property laws, there's definitely becoming gray areas now. And I heard the property laws are changing to where now animals are, at least companion animals, are being recognized as, sentient beings that are beyond a chair or a table, when it comes to these kind of like custody battles and divorce and things like that. So it's all shifting, which is good. Not fast enough for sure, but.
How do you feel about any kind of efforts that the government may be making, or counter efforts, or in the corporate world? Do you feel like there's progress, or do you feel like we're taking steps back?
Well, I think that it's all about the money, where the money goes. And, I think that there's a kind of a double-edged sword. A lot of the big corporations are buying up vegan and organic products, And some people, look at that as bad, but I think at the same time we could look at it as good. We've got to feed 7 million people, or 7 billion people. It's not going to happen. The whole thing is not going to happen on just, local food sheds. We're going to have global commerce, and and if we can get the corporations to have good, healthy, vegan, organic products, I don't see that as a bad thing. So I think that's a really good thing. There was an interesting some article about how investors are actually telling their folk not to invest in meat and to be pulling out of meat investments because that's just going down.
Yeah, that's really great.
Wonderful. Yeah. So there's some good trends out there happening for sure. I mean, we're definitely having impact.
Yeah, I think there is still a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of the government supporting the money-making dead animal industry. And
sure.
There was a really horrific article in the New York Times. They had fields where they experimented on better ways to produce calves better, like they were trying to get single cows to give birth to multiple calves, and there was just
right. Yeah, it's a farming research facility.
Yes,
that was about. Yeah.
Yes.
Where they're trying to do all kinds of things to make it more profitable, more efficient, all those things, and at the animal's expense.
It's really horrible that our government is doing that. In my mind, that's another form of betrayal. But on the other hand, it's great that these kinds of stories are starting to get out to the public.
Absolutely, yes. So it's something I'd love to just mention. I'm kind of on this kick lately that I'm trying to encourage people in our movement and vegans to not use the term factory farming. And the reason for this is because of the shift that I've been talking about and what my book talks about, all this alternative farming, small-scale farming. People are thinking now that just because they buy a label that says cage-free or humane, that their product, their dairy, their eggs are not factory farmed. And I hear it from people when I'm talking to people. They'll say, oh, well, my meat isn't factory farmed. It's from the local butcher shop, And so what we've done inadvertently is we've actually, through this language, created this alternative, other. So now suddenly, it's not factory farming, it's other kind of farming. So we really need to lose the term factory farming and lump it all together. It's animal agriculture. All animal farming, all animal agriculture is cruel, it's abusive, has inherent cruelties, separates families, causes mutilation. Young, healthy animals are going to slaughter no matter the label, and it's all animal agriculture, animal farming, not just factory farming. So just kind of want to encourage the listeners to kind of change that language and think about that.
You can do 1,001 reforms, or you can just quit eating the stuff, To my mind, that's really the only solution, is for more and more people just to stop using animal products. I think it's a great time for anyone to become a vegan. There are many, many ways to do that. And it's great to have community, and to have people that you can get together with, share your experiences with, and other people just be vegan with. And it makes it all a lot more fun. Besides being an author, you are a project lead, I believe, a projects manager at United Poultry Concerns. Please tell us a bit about that.
That is my day job, United Poultry Concerns. It's a wonderful organization, national nonprofit that's been around for many, many years, and we focus on chickens and turkeys, birds that are raised for their flesh and their eggs, and encouraging people, of course, not to eat them or their eggs, and creating respect for them. And so, we have numerous projects that we do throughout the year. Right now I'm working on the Conscious Eating Conference. It's a conference that we put on at UC Berkeley in the Bay Area that brings national speakers from all over the country to talk about these issues. This year we're going to have a whole hour dedicated to fish, which I think is great because fish are often just such a side note, unfortunately. So there's a woman, Mary Finelli, who recently started an organization called Fish Feel, and she's going to be speaking about the fishing industry and fish.
Fantastic.
And we have an undercover investigator who did undercover investigating on factories, industrial farming for many, many years. And he will be speaking as well, and it's just amazing the stories he has to tell. So it's going to be a great conference. That's coming up on April 4th. If anybody's in the Bay Area, I know you're deep in the heart of Texas. So
we're a different Bay Area, the Galveston Bay Area.
Right.
Not quite as nice, I'm afraid, but
something that you could participate in is one of our national campaigns. Is we have our International Respect for Chickens Day coming up, and that is on May 4th. That's the day. It's kind of the whole month of May that we celebrate International Respect for Chickens Day. Mm-hmm. And anyone can get involved by going to our website and can get flyers, and we send you information and posters. You can do a leafleting or a table or a protest or a fundraiser or whatever you'd like to do in honor of the chickens for International Respect for Chickens Day. And just a donation is greatly appreciated, as we have campaigns that we do. We do ad campaigns, bus ads in San Francisco and in D.C. and in New York, where we have banners on buses that encourage people to go vegan. Wow. And have respect for chickens. Those are very, very expensive, so a donation for that work is greatly appreciated. Lots of ways to get involved, lots of ways to help. You're welcome to go to our website, which is upc-online.org. And learn more about us and see how you can get involved. Sign up on our email list.
Sounds great. Some people might ask, why chickens? Why poultry?
Well, that's a good question. I think and as you can see, we feel it's very important to focus on chickens because they are truly really arguably, but I would say definitely the most abused of the animals in animal agriculture. Yeah. As well as in the largest numbers. Numbers of chickens, it's really astronomical. Right now, often you hear people say, "Oh, I'm cutting back on meat. I'm cutting back on meat." But when you poll those people and dig a little deeper, they're actually just cutting back on beef and pork and can actually be increasing their chicken intake. So they can be killing more animals because their little bodies are so much smaller. For every one pig that's killed, 60 chickens are killed. For every one cow, 190 chickens are killed. So many more little souls are dying because of their bodies being so much smaller. So people can actually be, quote unquote, cutting back on meat, even for humane reasons, and actually kill more animals if they're switching to chicken.
Something like 9 billion chickens killed every year in the United States.
And
those are just the ones that are counted as products, and there's so many others. All the male chicks are ground up, and
that's right.
All these horrible things in their poor existence. We really only have 1 minute left, so just to wrap up, what's your future hold for you?
Well, I do have a second book in the works.
Mm-hmm.
It's called The Humane Hoax, and so it's a kind of a continuation of the thoughts and subject matter in The Ultimate Betrayal in my first book. And it's coming along slowly. It's a process. I also have a sci-fi novel in my head,
wow.
a vegan-themed sci-fi story that I'm trying to get out as well. Very difficult to write science fiction, though, so that's been challenging, but I'm working on it. Just have a lot of projects. I also organize the Sonoma County Veg Fest that's getting really big and wonderful here in Sonoma County. Wear a lot of hats and just keep it going, 24/7 for the animals, and that keeps my heart happy.
Exactly. That's really fantastic, Hope. You've been a great guest. It's been great talking to you, and really, really appreciate everything that you're doing for the animals. And for me, too, also, what you've taught me through your book and through talking with you. So thank you very much, Hope.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.